Yes, I'm delighted to be here with Leonard Lin, the former CEO of Tyler Projects and the founder of GAMENAMI. Leonard is a seriously intelligent guy, leaving university and starting a game studio within 4 months of leaving. That game studio generated 10 million US dollars in sales and had offices in Singapore, Taiwan, and China. Leonard is now focusing on new things, having learned some pretty incredible lessons about mobile games marketing and how to create a professional studio environment geared towards success. Leonard, welcome to the business of indie games.
Glad to be here, Simon. I mean, I'm so happy that you are basically giving indie developers this super valuable information that will really help them to achieve success in this really difficult games industry. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, great. I mean, I do see it as my opportunity to give something back, and I'm very excited to talk to you actually because a lot of people are experiencing, difficulty making mobile games, and it would be great to get stuck into that. Before we do, you first started your company, Tyler Projects, over 10 years ago when Zynga launched their poker game on Facebook. What was your experience with Facebook games like at the start? What did you learn and what happened?
Okay, so Bell Stations was the first Facebook game from Singapore and the first Facebook game that we made. But that actually wasn't our first game. We actually started with an RPG, and it was like a flash game, that we released on Windows. And we went kind of like the traditional publishing route. We had a publisher, I think it was Tri-Media, and that was like over 10 years ago. And not surprisingly, the game did not sell as well as we would have liked. And at the time, I think it was around 2007, 2008, Facebook opened up its platform to third-party developers. So we saw that there were some simple games, and there's Zynga Poker. There was a game called Pirates and a game called Warbook, which was just like a simple HTML sort of a browser game. And the team that I had, we liked using Flash at the time. Mm-hmm. So we thought, hey, if these games are mostly HTML games, we could maybe take it up a notch, and we could use Flash, and we could add in some animations. So we put out our game called Bell Stations, and we just rode the Facebook wave, and it was quite different from your experience. So you've worked with a lot of like licensed IPs, whereas right off the bat we were working with like our own IP, and in Singapore it's a little more difficult to get a hold of a license. Most of the IPs are in the Western countries, or let's say Japan and Korea. So unless you have like connections, or you're willing to travel to get a hold of those IPs, it's pretty difficult to play that licensed IP game. So it was interesting that Facebook opening up, and then games being one of like the really big drivers of more users joining the platform and staying engaged with the Facebook platform.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's fascinating. And I mean, did you ever think that your worry about relying on one platform, maybe Facebook would change the rules, or was it just that it was in that period when it was just really flying?
Okay, so this is basically what happened. Like very early, I guess Facebook is a very well-funded startup, is growing at an amazing rate. So they did not charge developers anything, and in the Facebook developer forums, I actually posted like, hey, we're doing pretty well, making some good money. Maybe you guys would like to take a cut, maybe like 10% or something like that. Eventually, what happened is, I think a year before Facebook actually did their IPO, or maybe it was even before that, they rolled out this thing called Facebook Credits. So they did the thing, like with Google and the App Store, where they take 30%, and you have to use their Facebook credit system, for the in-app purchases. So all the games are free to play, by the And on top of that, I think closer to Facebook's IPO, because there were a lot of complaints about how the games were getting really spammy and appearing in people's news feeds. So Facebook, I guess before IPOing, they basically did this, which was pretty detrimental to. I think it pretty much killed most of the Facebook game developers. They basically made it such that your friends, so let's say you share something from a game, because they have the API for you to share things from your game. Your friends will not see that share unless they also have the game already installed, which just completely kills any kind of like viral marketing that used to be available on the platform. So like the developers like us, we had to spend an additional 30 to 40% of revenue on advertising just to keep up our numbers. And that's in addition to the 30% that Facebook's already taking from the Facebook credits. So we saw our like revenue just drop like 70% overnight. And if not for the fact that we had some, I guess, pretty good budgeting, and we had built up a reserve. So it's not like we were just, oh, we have money, so let's just go crazy or something like that. So we planned the finances pretty well. So we were able to survive that and make the transition to smartphones, which is where we realized things were headed anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that is just the sort of thing that happens in this industry that you need to be able to navigate. Thank God for that, prudent reserve that you had. And so was that it then? Did you just decide, right, we're not doing Facebook anymore, we're going to go to smartphones because that's, the emerging market?
I think we didn't really have a choice. I mean, given the way things were going, and what I learned, and I think this is a really important lesson for any game developer. I mean, whether you're doing free-to-play, mobile, or you're doing premium PC, and that is what I learned that we were getting from Facebook, which enabled us to be so successful in the prior years, was actually free marketing, right? We didn't have to, because Facebook had all these viral features, notifications, and I mean, one of my co-founders, he actually left the company because on the one hand, we were getting a lot of this free marketing, but in order to get that free marketing, we actually spent a lot of time adapting to the Facebook API changes. So they will come up with this new feature like, okay, you can send friends, like if you perform an action in-game, it would send some of your friends a notification. And the bigger players, they had like an arrangement with Facebook, so Zynga would get early access to this feature so they could help Facebook to test it, right? And then the rest of us developers would get it later, maybe like 2 months later. And the moment we implemented it, we just saw our installs. So it was installs in those days, just shoot up. And even if they, like the notification is the feature that I always remember, because I think we were a little slow kind of like implementing it. And so it was only 2 weeks that it was around before Facebook kind of like shut it down, that we had it implemented. But just in that 2 weeks, I mean, I think we got like 150,000 new users just sign up just because of that feature. So I mean, the Facebook platform back then is like kind of like a Wild West, and there are all these crazy marketing features, which I mean, of course, from the user point of view, it's like spam, but it was really effective. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. And so you're now on mobile. Are you on Facebook at all anymore?
Well, I mean, even on mobile, you try to incentivize your players to sign up, log in with their Facebook, and if they invite friends, they can get some free currency. But it's way, it's nowhere near the effectiveness of what it was in its heyday, because Facebook's just toned down that virality so much that even if you send your friend like notification like, hey, play this slots game with me. I've given you free spins. It's like just really hidden in some corner somewhere. It's not as it used to be, where they actually get a message, and how things are with social media, right? If you get a message from a friend, you click it, and and that is an install into the game that launches the game.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because you've moved on to mobile and you've taken the learnings from Facebook. I mean, it sounds like you like to make it difficult, because mobile, a lot of my friends are complaining about mobile. A lot of people I know are spending $4 to market mobile games and getting back too,
Yeah. So mobile's incredibly challenging as well because of the cost of install. So marketing is really costly when you can't get free marketing. I've listened to some of the other speakers that you've interviewed. So I think a lot of indie developers are looking at how can they get marketing, because that's like the biggest problem that all of us have. We need more visibility for our game, and I think I've tried these days to think about it a little more strategically, because I saw you interviewed Grant, and he talked about Reddit marketing, and then maybe back in the day, and this is what I did previously, so I actually made this post, and I got 30,000 likes, 10,000 shares, 10,000 comments on a single post without spending any money. And what we did is we just posted kind of like a mystery image, and we said, like, if you like, comment, and share, everyone's going to get this reward once it hits a certain threshold. That does not work anymore. So I mean, a lot of indie developers, they'll be looking at like these tactics, and I mean, over time the social networks may shut them down, they may become obsolete. So it's kind of this like never-ending game to like keep up with what's working with the marketing, if you only look at tactics rather than like a strategy.
So what are you doing at the moment then, like tactics wise?
So I've actually decided that, and this is beyond just like marketing, but I got myself certified as a solutions architect for Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud as well. The idea behind it is I'm trying to keep my development costs extremely low by adopting kind of like the most efficient architecture possible for a multiplayer mobile title. So I mean, definitely one of the things that this isn't going to apply to every indie developer, but multiplayer does drive monetization more than single player, because if you have competition, then there's more of a reason to spend on the game. So I know it's not for every indie developer out there, but that's just kind of what I'm familiar with. And I hope this isn't too technical, but I'm quite interested to see how serverless computing can be applied to game development, because that really helps to lower the costs. If we used to be paying like $8,000 a month for servers, in the heyday, because we had like I think it was like maybe 250,000 monthly active users, and peak concurrent user counts were like 2,000 or 3,000 concurrent users. So that was really expensive, infrastructure wise. But just in terms of like marketing strategy, I'm looking into. I mean, this is one of the things that we didn't really do in the past, and that is to employ a lot more analytics and try and feed that back into machine learning with Firebase, so that can bring down our advertising costs. So you mentioned like on mobile, your friends having to pay like $4. I'm actually paying something like 50 cents, and I think I can get it even lower. And it's really about just making sure that you have this marketing infrastructure, quantitative marketing infrastructure in place to make sure that the machine learning algorithms are constantly helping you to optimize and target the right user for the ad dollars that you're spending.
Wow, that's really interesting. And is that something you're offering to other developers, or is that something that that machine learning something you're just doing in-house?
No, it's not even something that I'm creating. It's a Google product. It's a Firebase predictions.
Oh, Firebase, yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it was like 2 years ago, and we have a Google account manager because we were one of the top 15 Android developers from Singapore. So they were telling us, hey, you guys really got to get on with this analytics, and Firebase is the way that you can make use of that. And most of my team at the time, we're all game developers, so who wants to work on all this boring infrastructure stuff, right? Everyone wants to work on the gameplay. No one wants to work on all this marketing and all this boring stuff. So I just had to spend time to figure it out myself. And to be completely honest, it's not like I know this so well, but I just think it would be really helpful if there were someone, I guess, I'll do it if I have the time, putting out tutorials on like how indie developers can make use of Firebase together with Unity to make sure that they have data from their games as the users are playing them being fed into Firebase, Google Analytics, and so that if and when they run ads, there can be that feedback of data to the Google Ads server to make sure that it improves the targeting so that you spend less on advertising. And I would say even if, and I completely understand like indie developers have a very limited budget for marketing, right? Or sometimes probably zero budget for marketing. But I think that ties into what I was talking about, having a marketing strategy. And I was actually watching this video by Jay Abrams, who's like a very respected marketer. And in the past, I used to think about marketing as like doing advertising, promotions. But I think he put it really clearly. He said, like for marketing, the goal is just to get your product in front of the right customer. Because I believe whatever game it is that you're making, maybe if it's not too obscure or really niche, there probably is an audience out there. But how much are you going to spend to get to that right audience for the game title that you're making? And if you have zero analytics, you don't gather any data about the users who are currently playing your game, you're never going to know how you should direct your marketing. I actually happen to know that if a lot of the players who play my titles, they're actually from the Midwest in the United States. So I can direct my marketing there. And let's say if I wanted to attend a trade show, PAX South actually makes the most sense because that's where my player base is. So just, if you have no data, then you're just flying blind. And that's where the value comes in.
Yeah, I mean, that's beautifully put, brilliant. I think it will probably be worth our while to do a Firebase piece on this summit, I mean, you've really hit the nail on the head, and you're also using some of the sort of latest tools to reach people and to understand and direct to your market.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you can say about that? What else do you do, marketing wise? Clearly you're pretty innovative and insightful into that area.
Well, I mean, I guess, since indie developers are always looking for tactics, there are a couple of things which, with my previous titles, my new titles, you've probably heard of these things before, but just encourage the players to invite friends, provide them a referral reward, because referrals, it helps to lower your average cost of user acquisition. And I mean, there's some fraud, occasionally, because people have multiple mobile accounts and they can refer these like fake accounts. And we dealt with tons of that. And it's probably not worth the developers' time to really deal with that sort of fraud. But yeah, I mean, that's, I think long term, and it's so challenging because, as developers, you have to do the coding, you have to arrange the artwork, you have to make sure the game gets funded, and you still have to deal with all this marketing. But I think what I've really learned is that maybe it might be good to scale back on the budget that we allocate to the gameplay, and really allocate a bit more budget to marketing and getting that marketing right, and really understanding how to do it. And it's not really about, okay, let's throw $5,000, $10,000 into marketing, but small incremental experiments. And this was something that I discussed with Nicola, which is like, it could be like $5 a day, just to start getting data. And one of the reasons why I will continue to do free-to-play is because I can get a lot more user data, because the game is free, so I have more users. Obviously, majority of them are not paying. And one of the things that I will be doing going forward is I will have, like in my previous titles, the smallest package is like $5 US. But I've seen a lot of Chinese and Korean developers do this. So they've got like a one-off, like $1, a 99-cent package. And I think it's just there because players who buy this, they go into a bucket of paying players. And then the algorithm can then optimize, like, okay, what are the characteristics of people who actually were able to pay? Because for free to play, we're really just getting from $0 to $1, and that's like a huge step. So if we can do that, then we can start to optimize and find out where we can target more of these paying users. Are they from Japan? Are they male or female? Are they what sort of age group? What time do they log in? What's the best time to hit them with an offer?
Wait till they're really tired and then hit them with a $10 bill.
I mean, I'm not sure if this is still valid. I mean, we used to get data from like AppAnnie, and so apparently one of the best times to hit people with an offer for mobile is at lunchtime. So maybe it's like when they're with like their colleagues, and they're like, colleagues can see, hey, what's that you're playing? That's maybe a good time to try and get a bit of viral marketing in, because people are together.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose that you want to have a lunch break, and maybe alongside that spend a bit of money. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with machine learning. It's like maybe it doesn't make sense. Like I might think, hey, maybe it's better to hit people with offers when they're at home, when they're relaxed, for the evening. But if the data suggests otherwise, then you shouldn't fight it, right? You should just follow what the data tells you.
Wow, that's incredible. I could go deeply into that all afternoon. So, but when you're working on a brand new game,
mm-hmm.
and you start testing that audience to get the filtering and targeting right, that's where you start with the experiments, like the $5-10 a day.
Well, I mean, I guess this may be helpful for the indie developers who are doing mobile. But where we really managed to break into mobile is we used to have this policy where we would do one I guess more mid-core, hardcore title, and then we do a casual title. So we had this casual title called Conveni Story, and it's not like a groundbreaking title. It's a match 3, okay? But it's it's got this Japanese theme, and the art was done by our Taiwanese branch office. So I would say it was probably a 90% fit for that market. And what we did is I cross-sold my Facebook game audience into that game, and did a lot of Facebook posts, did a lot of the tactical marketing, which I mentioned earlier. So I was able to get the game up to, let's say, I think it was something like 250,000 downloads organically without spending any money. In addition to that, I would do things like, just ambush anyone on the street and like, hey, download Conveni Story. I mean, some of the developers I've spoken to, they're like, yeah, I don't want to do things like that. I don't want to ask people to download my game, buy my game. But I feel that's just part and parcel of like, being a founder, the CEO of the company. You just have to let everyone know what your product is and like, hey, come and download my game. It's free. It doesn't even cost you anything, right? And then it was Google who got in touch with us and said, hey, your game seems to be doing pretty well. Maybe we could put it up in the new and updated section. And they do have like a page where they have all these guidelines on what your icon should look like, and certain standards that they have. And if you are willing to fit their criteria, then you can get featured. And featuring, what I find is it works really well if you're a casual title that doesn't have very high requirements. So we actually, the last title I made, which is Fate and Fortune Tactics, when we first released it, it was not optimized. I think you needed to have at least 4 gigabytes of RAM to really run the game well. And there are plenty of devices out there, especially in Southeast Asia, where I think it's quite the norm to have like 1 gig of memory or even less. So yeah, getting featured if you're a casual game that doesn't have like high requirements it's really helpful. And there are plenty of indie developers which if they can keep updating their casual titles, they can keep this feature rolling going, and they can do really well. But for the developers that want to do a little more mid-core, hardcore stuff, it's going to be a challenge because you really have to optimize your game. Otherwise, the feature can actually backfire. And you see all these 1-star reviews pouring in because basically you have these users with phones which aren't able to run the game optimally, and you're just going to get hit by a wave of like bad reviews.
Yeah, totally. I understand that. That's always been an issue on every platform. I think I remember PC, the min spec used to be 2 meg of RAM.
Yeah, I mean, PC is a whole platform that I haven't really explored, but even with PC, you have like different devices, and like you have to worry about catering to like that lowest denominator device. That's a huge challenge that, I mean, players may not realize that. I mean, developers, we want to have the best graphics that we can put out there, but sometimes we have to really unfortunately cater to the minimum to make sure that we don't get hit by all these.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not just the graphics, it's like sometimes you can have really well balanced gameplay, and then you realize to optimize it you've got to take out 10 of the NPCs. You've got to take 10 of the bad guys out, and it's just not as fun anymore.
I think like it's not an issue for me, but maybe some developers, they don't want to do mobile because it really restricts what you can do, because you have to work with much more underpowered hardware. So yeah, but I mean, for me, it's always more about like the system architecture and just the most efficient way to really run the business.
Yeah, of course. And I'd like to get into the sort of mobile, the marketplace and what's that's like in a minute. But just on you, so you're using Firebase and obviously Facebook data. Are there any other tools that you use to capture and analyze the data?
So we've actually, I don't think you have to use every single tool. We use Unity Analytics, well, just because it's there, right? Firebase Analytics is actually Google Analytics. And yeah, I think for indies, just keep it simple. You don't want to overcomplicate your technology stack. And like I was saying, I mean, even if you're doing premium games, I think it makes sense to get some data, and so you know who your players are, and hopefully as the game becomes brings in some revenue, then you can decide to deploy that in a smart and informed way to get the most out of your marketing spend.
Thank you. And then, so on Facebook, a lot of people complain about cost per acquisition there. Is that where you're talking about the $5 a day, and is that where you're lowering the cost through analyzing the data?
I think so far we've done both Facebook as well as Google Ads. So I mean, if you speak to some of the ad platforms, they'll tell you, and like say Google will tell you like, hey, we've got this universal ad campaign, which is it makes things really easy for you, but don't ever fall into that trap, because what they do is they'll split your ad spend across YouTube, Facebook. Sorry, if it's Facebook, it will split it across Facebook and Instagram, right? Google will split it across YouTube, Google Display Ads, Google Search Ads, and the thing is like you really have to look at which one of these channels is performing. And once you know which one is performing for you, you have to cut out the rest, because you're just not spending your money optimally. So as much as the advertising platform kind of tries to make it easy for you, you really have to be at the wheel and have your hands on the wheel when it comes to like the marketing spending.
And do you have can you recommend a strategy for indies who don't have a lot of budget for Facebook?
I would say definitely start with analytics. You want to make sure that you have your Unity Analytics. Try to integrate Facebook Analytics so that you have an idea of where your users. It helps you in a number of ways. Like with our last title, before it was optimized, a huge amount of the drop off was because of that lack of optimization. So people didn't even get past like the tutorial, because there was just too much loading time. And when you develop a title for mobile, patience is attention span is even shorter on mobile as compared with PC. So yeah, I mean, right now I'm just hugely in favor of just keeping that gameplay really simple, optimized,